On November 22, 1963, President John F. Kennedy was shot and killed by a sniper's bullet while riding in a motorcade through downtown Dallas. The man charged with his murder, Lee Harvey Oswald, despite being in police custody, was killed a few days later by a nightclub owner and low-level Chicago mobster named Jack Ruby. A rumor soon started swirling that Oswald had watched Suddenly on TV a few days before the assassination. The notion was used to bolster the case that Oswald was a lone nut and not part of a larger conspiracy. Frank Sinatra was John Kennedy's closest pal in Hollywood. He was so devastated by the murder and the possible part that Suddenly had played in it that he implored United Artists to pull the film from circulation. Over the years, a legend grew that Sinatra actually bought up all the existing prints and destroyed them, trying to erase all evidence of the film's existence. It's a good story, but it's not true. Suddenly just ended up meeting the same fate as many independently made pictures of the time, slipping through the cracks and falling into the public domain, where operators typically do little to preserve films but are happy to squeeze the last few nickels and dimes out of them. Of course, Suddenly wasn't the only film Sinatra made that dealt with a plot to kill the president. A year prior to Kennedy's assassination, he starred in The Manchurian Candidate, the mother of all modern conspiracy films, which posited a communist plot to remove and replace the sitting U.S. president. Legend also has it that Sinatra, who was the producer of The Manchurian Candidate, had that film pulled from circulation as well. The film had already been out for a year when Kennedy was killed, and its disappearance had more to do with the nation's shame and misery than with Sinatra's personal feelings. In the years since Kennedy's murder, films based on plots to kill American presidents have become a genre unto themselves, starting with pictures from the 70s like Executive Action and The Parallax View, to more recent films like In the Line of Fire, Air Force One, Vantage Point, White House Down, and yes, a 2013 remake of Suddenly, not to mention the literally dozens of films, documentary, fictional, and a combination of both, about the murder of JFK. As a culture, we seem to crave movies about political assassinations almost as much as we relish ones about serial killers. Now, I can't leave Suddenly behind without a few words for its director, Lewis Allen. He was an Englishman who got his training on the British boards before making a mark on Broadway. His first feature film, The Uninvited in 1944, is a classic haunted house yarn. And for the next 10 years, he directed a string of solid, if unspectacular, features for Paramount, many in the noir vein, like So Evil My Love, Chicago Deadline, Appointment with Danger, and the soapy Technicolor oddity, Desert Fury. He seemed to be one of those go-along-to-get-along craftsmen, as good as the script he was given, but rarely making more of it than what was on the printed page. I also want to note the fine work of composer David Raksin, whose score cleverly reflects the on-screen conflict. It's almost a parody of pleasantness when depicting the town's down-home virtues, but it becomes jagged and discordant as John Barron infects the family's bloodstream. Raksin, of course, is also responsible for such memorable scores as Laura and The Bad and the Beautiful. And lastly, a shout out to actress Nancy Gates, who played Ellen Benson, resourceful all-American mom.
Haven't you any feelings at all?
No, I haven't, lady.
Nancy is still with us at 92 years of age. And if you're watching, Nancy, I think you could have taken out that louse Barron all by yourself. I sort of wish they'd written it that way. Then this film would have really been ahead of its time. Next weekend, I'll be back with Ricardo Montalban and Sally Forrest for a 1950 noir that involves the Ivy League. In the meantime, be sure to join the conversation over on our Noir Alley Facebook page and on Twitter. Until then, see you in the shadows.